Hi, my name is Pedro Alves, and I'm the host of the I Alpha Project. Thank you for joining us for another episode. In today's episode, I actually wanted to talk about how we treat each other. There's a little thing that I've noticed throughout my life is how we treat strangers versus how we treat people closest to us, friends and family, and most of all, how we treat ourselves. There was something that I did with my kids when they were considerably younger, and they were both at school, and I think this was pre-high school, so one day I asked both of them to sit down, handed them a piece of paper each, gave them a pen, and said to them, okay, I want you, Layla, to write down the worst thing you've ever called your brother. Okay? I want you to write down the worst name or thing that you've ever called your sister. So they both wrote it down. And then I said to them again, now I want you to write down the worst thing that's affected you that they've ever called you. So I knew that if I did it that way, they would definitely find the worst thing that the other one did to justify their wrong words or their statement from the previous question. Once that was done, they handed me the piece of paper and I did nothing about it. I kept it in my pocket. Now, it was interesting to know that for both of them, the worst thing that the one said to the other wasn't as bad as I was expecting. And in fact, Layla said that the worst thing she ever told her brother was that he was a bad big brother. And Kai wrote down that the worst thing that she's ever said to him was that he was a bad big brother. I didn't address it then, I just kind of left it. And probably about a week later, they were talking about a clique of people at the school. And apparently, it's a little group of kids that are kind of like a bit of a bully from their perception. And I said to him, okay, well, let me just stop you guys right there. Let me ask you a question. Kai, how would you feel if this group of kids called you a bad big brother? Oh, and you should have seen him walk up. He was the shredder. He goes, what? They don't know me. They don't know what I'm like. They don't know. I have no idea about my relationship with my sister. I said, that's absolutely true. Lila, how would you feel? Who are they to say anything? He's my brother. How would they know? They can't talk to him about like that. They can't judge him. I said, isn't that interesting? The reality is these kids have no idea what kind of big brother you are. They don't live with you. In fact, they're not even friends of yours. But yet you'd be so offended by what they say about your brother, and Kai, you'd be offended about what they say about you. But your sister knows you. So she goes ahead and says this. How does that make you feel? What does that make you feel with the awareness of the double standards and what you hold people to? If Layla didn't want, nor would she accept anybody else calling her brother a bad big brother, then why does she allow herself to justify calling him that? But he made me mad, he made me angry. Yes, he did. But you still the one who used the words. And I often reflect back to this even in myself. You know, we can often say, you made me do it because you frustrated me. What we're doing is we're actually giving away our power. In the book, The Courage to Be Disliked, he goes on to explain that we're often at a subconscious level always making a decision. He uses the example of a mother who's really angry at her daughter and he's screaming and shouting at her daughter. And the phone rings and she answers the phone. And when she answers the phone, she goes into the polite, neutral voice. Hi, welcome to so-and-so residence. This is so-and-so speaking. How can I help you? And then she ends up having a conversation with the person on the line. The moment she puts the phone down, she reverts right back to screaming or shouting at her daughter. And I think even with my own daughter, she really taught me how to become more of a man because I wanted to set the right example for her. And I don't care what her mood is like. I always wanted to make sure that I addressed my reactions to her moods, to make sure she felt loved even though I was angry, sure she felt abandoned even when I needed my own space. And I think this kind of reflection really helps us in communication with one another. Just because I'm angry with you doesn't mean I'm going to leave you. And I think this is the one common thing that we deal with in society nowadays. Every time there's a massive issue or problem, the prospect of termination rises. You make one mistake at work, you fear losing your job. Your partner's angry at you, you fear them leaving. I mean, I think this might be a common thing with a lot of people. So what we do is we often then find ourselves walking on eggshells depending on the other person's mood. This can cause people to withhold information, adjust information, and become slightly avoidant with their own feelings and expressing their own feelings to the people that actually matter the most. So, guys, I'm going to put something on you, and I want you to think about someone you care about. Think about what the worst thing is that you've probably said to them, and imagine a complete stranger talking to them and saying those things to them. How would that feel? We don't allow excuses for others, but yes, we excuse ourselves. So more often than not, guys, we can't control other people. We can only control our reactive responses. It's perfectly fine to be angry, to be upset, to be offended. But just because we are offended doesn't mean somebody else is being offensive. Byron Katie often reflects that anytime someone said something to her, if she felt a negative reaction to what they were saying, even if it was a slight bit of anger, her go-to was like, there must be truth to that somewhere. There is a belief system within myself that I'm reacting to their statement because I somehow believe it to be true and don't like it. So I've tried to incorporate that. It takes practice, but I've incorporated it into my daily life in a sense that if I find myself reacting or getting straight away upset or frustrated, I then question, wait, stop. What is it about this that I don't like that's causing me to feel that way? And sometimes I'm angry because I'm definitely not what they say I am. They might be calling me something or describing my character in a way that I feel is completely inaccurate. They could also be describing my character that could be the old me and not the new me, and I've worked so hard on improving that stubborn part of myself that now I'm being reactive to when they blanket my behavior in a statement. It's still got to do with me. Their perspective is their perspective. If someone turns it to me, you're so difficult to talk to, my response is, no, why would I be difficult to talk to? You just don't understand what I'm trying to say. Well, now I go, yes, I can see that sometimes I might be a bit confusing and I jump subjects quite easily. Could you help me explore where did I do that in this instance? Because I feel like I kind of expressed myself okay. There's different ways to approach that situation. And the only way that we can become non-reactive is by learning to calm ourselves. So before going into any situation, if possible, if I'm going to have a difficult conversation with the kids or my partner, the first thing I do is I want to set in my mind I'm here to resolve an issue. And I don't go into a conversation wanting to be right or wrong. And rather than express my thoughts and feelings directly, I can often also approach it in a way like, I'm having trouble with this. Would you help me understand it? I would like to have a better understanding why you would say those things. I don't understand where you are heading to or the direction you'd like to go by expressing yourself in that way. And sometimes people are accused of being impatient and interrupting quite a bit. And I took offense to that at one stage. And I was like, no, actually, I'm not. And sometimes I'm just impatient because I know where you're going. So the point of the fact is I am impatient because I know where they're going. I'm not allowing them to finish or express themselves. And what I realized is upon reflection, I started to see I'm actually impatient for various reasons. I want to help that person as quickly as possible, and I think I have the solution for them. So I don't let them finish. I want to be the savior and I interrupt them. Sometimes I'm a little bit struggling for time or frustrated, and I know where they're going, so I rush them to the point and give them an answer. Sometimes I'm assuming they're wanting an answer or some advice where all they want to do is vent, so I jump the gun and I don't allow them to express themselves or what exactly they need from that communication. So the reality is the fact that my negative response to that statement was because there was some truth in there, but in different shapes and forms. So over time, I've learned to kind of catch myself in the process of interrupting. And it doesn't mean I'm going to get it correct straight away, but what I do is I often say, oh, I'm so sorry. I've just interrupted you. I apologize. I'm just eager to get to the solution. Please continue. And sometimes calling yourself out on those things can also help you become more aware of the feelings that you have prior to saying those words. It's like an emotional response to an emotional feeling. That's what reaction is. When someone says something and we're already reactive, it can cause it to amplify as well. I hope that's making some sense there, guys. But at the end of the day, I think it's really important to remember to hold ourselves accountable for the words that we use. Words are solid. And the way that we want people to feel, especially those that we care about, we do have a responsibility then to express ourselves correctly. The other thing is we often want to be understood, so we put the responsibility on other people to put the effort into understanding what I'm trying to say. So if I'm communicating in a very aggressive, non-structured manner, how do I hope that they're going to understand where I'm coming from? If I'm calling someone names or being overtly aggressive in the language I'm using or dismissive in my language, how do I hope that they're actually going to hear what I want them to hear? When I want them to kind of understand my perspective of things, when I don't want them to take offense the way they do it and just understand that it was based on something completely irrelevant to what they're talking about. There are so many differences in conversations that there can be miscommunication, but it's up to us to become clearly understood. One of the best ways to being understood is to understand. So many times we want to express ourselves and we have this desperate need to be heard, but then remember what you want, you sometimes have to give first. And people go, well, why should I be the one giving it first? Well, it's not about who gives it first is the winner or loser. It's more about how quickly do you want to be understood. So often if I want to be understood and I'm not getting anywhere with my expression, I completely do a 180. I will actually turn to the person and I stop trying to be understood and I then turn around and try to understand where they are coming from. And when I do that, I often realize we're coming at the conversation in two completely different angles. And I go, I get that's not at all what I meant. This is what I meant. And when we understand somebody, it gives us more knowledge in how we can become better understood, where they are coming from, where their focus point is. And then we can either choose to engage, choose to change directions, and we can also choose how we engage and how we change directions in the conversation. But it just stems down that it is our responsibility, first and foremost, to be understood. And in order to be understood, we need to first understand ourselves as well. So before approaching anybody and blaming them for the way that you feel, first to try and understand why is it that you feel in that way in the first place. And don't jump straight to them. Don't make them the target. Focus on you. So if I have an angry or reactive response to my child's behavior, before I address that behavior, I address where my emotions are coming from. Because the way I see it is, let's use a very small example. If the kids are running around and I told them to stop running around, and next thing I know, they've tipped the glass over and it's fallen over and broken and made a massive noise. Now I've got to get up and clean it, and I'm frustrated, and I respond, stop, I told you guys not to do that. You haven't listened to a word I'm fucking saying. You're running around like crazy. You could have hurt yourselves and like damaged this glass. Now I've got to find time on the weekend to go get the glass, the shattered glass everywhere. Now we've got to clean it up and make sure the dog doesn't cut itself. And we just continue to spiral. And from their perspective, Dad told them to stop, and there was a slight moment of being caught up in the actual moment, and this accident happened, and they didn't mean to upset me that much. And my reaction to that is that they are the worst kids in the world, that they've created this ample amount of work for me to do now. If I had sat down and focused on those feelings originally before losing it with them, is the moment I feel that reactive response, what kicks in? Ego, because they didn't listen to what I told them to do, so my ego kicks in and I get frustrated and angry. Now that I feel like I've been disrespected, I engaged them in a more abrupt, authoritarian manner. Now they're actually more reactive to me because they're scared of me being angry rather than being considerate to what they did wrong and how that affected people around them and the consequences of their actions. Now they're more fearful about me being angry. So even if they do calm down, I don't believe that they understand exactly the reasons why. But if I had then really said, guys, I told you, just stop now. Can someone please clean that up? You are now responsible for fixing that glass and replacing that glass. I really need you to just settle down for a little while for me so that I can finish this work, please. I know that you guys might be wanting to go out and play and get this out. If you let me finish this, we'll go shoot some hoops or do something afterwards. Would that be okay? Just approaching a situation in a slightly different manner, I'm going to get more reactive processes from them. And their accountability for their action is literally the consequences of their action. So if they didn't listen, why didn't you listen? Where are your minds? Do you realize you're being inconsiderate? Do you realize you made a lot of noise? Do you realize that you broke somebody else's property? I need you to be more aware of your actions. And that process of communication is a lot better than making them accountable for how I feel and also using language towards them that can impact their personal self-image. So guys, stop making excuses for how you behave. Take accountability for that. It's not other people that make you do anything. Take your power back, take control of yourself, and make sure that you express the love you feel from a place of compassion. Even if you're feeling and expressing the anger you feel, it exists because there is love. So many times I've been told, you're too much, you carry on, you're very directive, you can be combative. And those statements always kind of obviously hurt my feelings, but at the same time, there's a lot of truth to that because I am very stubborn. I do tend to want to address things head on. And so that's part of my personality style. So the best thing I realize is, well, then I need to adjust how I approach the situations. And I need to look at, am I coming across combative? Am I coming across stubborn? And am I being inconsiderate to other people's point of views? And I am definitely the type of person that believe that if I'm in a situation that I care enough about, I will do something to rectify it, approach it, and resolve it. And I'm quite happy to have the difficult discussions. But the moment that I couldn't be fucked having the discussion and I just don't care anymore, then that gets to a point that there's not going to be much resolution with the people I'm dealing with. So when someone cares enough to express how they're feeling, always remind yourself it's coming from a place of love. And if you are expressing yourself to somebody else, remind yourself it exists because you care enough to be upset. So don't work from the reactive response of being upset. Work from the response of that you care enough to be upset. Now care enough to find a resolution. Words are solid, like Bruce Lee says. That's why it's called spelling. They're magical. All right, guys, pay attention to it, and I hope to catch you all on the next episode. And if you haven't, please leave some comments, like, share, and subscribe, and feel free to give us a rating. I'll see you all in the next episode. Bye.